Hey, it's Danielle from VA Lifestyle Design and Grease and Media. In this video, I'll share my thoughts with you on Wix and WordPress. And if neither of those two terms are familiar for you, if you haven't heard of either of those things, but you just know there's something to do with this online stuff, I think you'll still find this video helpful if you are in that stage of research where you're figuring out what you're going to learn, what services you're going to provide as a virtual assistant or a freelancer working online, getting your start helping business owners with things like their blog posts and their email marketing and their social media content, all that type of thing. So if that's you, I think you'll still find this helpful as well. But the reason that I'm actually recording this is because it's a question that I have been getting a lot more frequently just recently, especially over the last few months. And I know in part that's because of the fact that Wix is doing a really awesome job of their marketing. They're doing a lot of advertising. They've got a lot of ads on YouTube. They have ads on television. I know in the States they do. I'm not sure if it's in other countries as well, the television advertising. But definitely every few times I hop on YouTube, I see a Wix ad and so forth. And so I've been receiving questions saying things like, you know, they see that I'm teaching WordPress, and so someone will ask my opinion on Wix, and they may have heard that Wix is more user-friendly and therefore shouldn't they get skilled up in that first as a beginner and that type of thing. So this video is all about me sharing my opinion and thoughts and kind of industry insight all about that. Now the caveat here is this isn't a Wix versus WordPress comparison, right? And the reason for that is I've worked in WordPress predominantly over the last 7 years, since 2011 when I got started working online, and I have worked in Wix several times during that for a few different clients. A couple of times it was for doing website migrations, and so I learned enough about it to do those migrations of content efficiently. I've worked in there for a short time managing content for a client that wasn't migrating out of Wix, so I do have some kind of base level of experience, but nowhere near to the extent of WordPress, and also not in the most recent couple of years where I know Wix has made a lot of updates and rolled out different features and so forth. So this is not about me going WordPress or Wix is better, right? Because I never really look at and compare software like that. I'm always looking at where are the opportunities, what am I inspired by, what are the clients that I'm excited to work with already using, and all those types of things. So I want to kind of share that framework with you. Now when I look at it from the perspective of, okay, if I was to start again right now, no experience, don't know what any of these systems are, trying to get some familiarity and then trying to, you know, develop my skill base and learn that so I can actually start providing that support. Here's what I would be looking at. I would be looking at what is the most popular in-demand system that I can get my base level of skills in so that I have all of these opportunities for being able to say, yes, I can help you with that right at the outset. And when I look at it from that perspective, it's WordPress by far, right? WordPress, from my industry perspective here at the moment, is still far and away the most popular, in particular for business owners that are well enough established to have the revenue and the business model to justify contracting well-paid support on teams or individual freelancers, whatever it is, right? WordPress, that is the one there. Now you don't see them marketing to the same extent that Wix is, because Wix is a company, a profit-driven company that's investing into their marketing and their advertising, whereas WordPress is an open source free software. Now your clients do pay for it. They pay for hosting, they pay for themes, they pay for plugins, they pay for maintenance and all these types of things. So it's not free for a client to use, but the actual core, the software itself is actually free. So there's not this big company sitting behind it running advertising campaigns and so forth. So that's one aspect to look at. Now this is much easier to see once you step into the industry, because then you start going, oh, that job post, they want WordPress. That job post, they want WordPress. This person I spoke to wants WordPress. This person I spoke to wants WordPress, right? So you still, you then have that insider industry knowledge to see how popular WordPress is. And I know from my own experience, like I kind of had this, if I look at another another system that I knew nothing about, but then as I stepped into the industry in 2011, I started to go, oh, everyone's using this, right? It's not popular anymore, so don't go and learn this one or research it. Well, you can research it, but don't go and spend time learning it. That's my recommendation. But there was this one system, it still exists, called One Shopping Cart for email marketing and e-commerce. So collecting payments and sending newsletters and sending automated emails and that type of thing. The first client that I started working with was using One Shopping Cart. And I was like, I have no clue if this is popular, if everyone uses this, if it's worth getting skilled up in. I was just, oh my gosh, I'm going to get this opportunity to work online. They're using One Shopping Cart. I'll learn it, right? And then the next client came along. Oh, they're using this thing called One Shopping Cart, right? Then another client came along and I'm like, oh, this is really popular, right? And so that's just to share a bit of my own reference point looking back, where once you're into the industry and you start to make these connections and you get client referrals and you're speaking to people all the time, you get the insider knowledge of what is in demand. But there are also ways that you can figure that out before you step into the industry. And one of those I want to mention to you, it's a particular tool. It's an online website you can go to. It's called Is It WP? Like the question, is it WP? I'll share the link with this video actually. .com. Is it WordPress.com, but it's abbreviated to WP. Is it WP.com? I'll share the link. Look out for it somewhere, probably below somewhere, depending on where you see this published. And you can grab the website link of any website of a blogger that you're following, a business that you're following, paste that website link into that tool. It's completely free, and click analyze, and it will tell you if it's a WordPress website or not. And you can do that. You don't need any skills to do that. You can do that right now in the research phase. And you'll see how many go ding, 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 and that green bar comes up and says, it doesn't say ding, 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 but I'm adding in the sound effects there. There's a green bar that comes up and says, yep, this is a WordPress site. And you'll just be blown away at how many are actually WordPress sites. They're not all WordPress sites. There's plenty of other website content management systems out there, but far and away those big businesses you see, many of them are operating on WordPress. In particular, the thing that I'm always thinking about as a supporter, if I was to start again from scratch, big part of my career stability came from having all these opportunities on large teams of virtual and remote contractors that were supporting large businesses with high revenue, right? So becoming that team member where you're not getting ad hoc itty bitty bits of work just working for solo entrepreneurs, but bigger businesses with these big teams, and especially there, that's where this focus is, right? So Wix, I know that they're broadening who they're reaching. In particular, I know they've launched a new feature where they allow people to build with the code. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that they're reaching a wider audience now. When I was working in Wix a couple of years back and earlier, oftentimes Wix would be the local business owner or the new blogger who wasn't wanting to get set up with all, a custom theme and everything on WordPress just yet, all those types of things. Now, I know they're branching out, but still those big businesses are well established in WordPress. Now I'm just going to look at my notes here to make sure I don't miss anything. Right, this is the other thing I wanted to share with you. So isitwp.com is one of the things you can do, but then look at it from the perspective of what are the other big popular in-demand software systems? What are they integrating with, right? That's another way that I started to develop my familiarity with all the tools and their level of demand when I was brand new. Okay, well, people are using this tool with that tool. Now, the example that I want to share with you here is the two big players when it comes to landing page building tools are called Lead Pages and ClickFunnels. Lead Pages is the one that I'm a fan of and the one that I teach and work with, and ClickFunnels is the other big player, right? They're two, I would say, I don't know what their respective user base is, but from my kind of view of the industry, they're kind of like equal big players at the moment in terms of their demand and popularity. And what do they both integrate with? They both integrate with WordPress. They both have WordPress, what's referred to as plugins, an extension. You can think of it like a WordPress app, so to speak, that allows them to integrate seamlessly with either lead pages or with ClickFunnels. Two of those tools that I mentioned to you that build special focused landing pages that will sit alongside a client's core website, right? So I go, okay, lead pages is huge. They're doing all their research. ClickFunnels is huge, right? So from my perspective, it's easy for me to understand because I've seen the extent of WordPress use over the last 7 years. But here what I'm doing is giving you some tools and some reference points to actually kind of research this yourself, to start to get that familiarity in that context yourself. So when you look at these tools, start looking at, okay, how many of them are talking about, okay, here's the WordPress plugin, here's the WordPress extension. It's just incredible the flexibility and the scope of what WordPress integrates with. Now, just remember, this is not me saying one is better than the other. I'm looking at it from the perspective of going, okay, if I'm a supporter, if I'm a brand new VA working online, I'm a generalist, I want my work base and my opportunities to be wide, where is the popularity and the demand there? And I want to look at that as opposed to things that a business owner might be looking at, which is cost or ease of use to build. If a business owner is going to go and build their own website for their bakery or for their hairdressing salon or, you know, whatever it is, their new coaching services, and they don't want to hire a developer and they don't want to pay, you know, extensive costs for, you know, extra plugins, etc., maybe Wix would be the best decision for them. There's other factors that need to be looked in there, and I won't go deep into that analysis right now. But for someone who's not having a support team like contracting you, maybe Wix is the best decision for them. But from our perspective as a service provider, we're looking at where is the most demand for our services, right? Hopefully that helps. Now, something else to keep in mind, there are still plenty of VAs and service providers helping clients with Wix. So I'm not saying that it's not worth learning. In fact, that was my next point. So the first point is realizing that you as a service provider want to look at popularity and demand as opposed to simply ease of use or your ability to get a site up fast, right? The second point is that you can still learn it, right? There's nothing to stop you from learning Wix as well, right? So I don't teach it, so you can't learn it from me. You'd learn WordPress blog content management from me. But once again, looking back at the start of my career, WordPress was the core thing I was focused on. WordPress was like, okay, I'm getting skilled up in WordPress, I'm going to master this. But I also learned a little bit of a tool called Joomla, enough to manage blogs for clients in a website builder called Joomla. Now, just like one shopping cart, I don't recommend you learn Joomla either. It's nowhere near the popularity. It's not even a close second that I would say go and learn it. Some people you're going to find are passionate about Joomla specifically, but it's not common. So, but I had those skills and it was more popular back then. And I got quite a few client referrals because of that, because they knew, oh, well, Danielle knows how to work in Joomla, and I got referrals for that. But my focus was always on mastering that WordPress skill set, because I knew that that was going to take me far over the long term. So you can still learn Wix, but here's the thing, you're not necessarily needing to learn the totality of it. With Joomla, for me, it wasn't about becoming a Joomla expert. It was just about getting familiar enough with all the tools and buttons and processes for specifically managing all the details of a blog post or a page and editing the content and adding in tags and categories and all that type of thing, just like I had been learning in WordPress. So you can still learn it. Even if WordPress is the most popular in-demand system for large, well-established businesses like you're hearing me share here, doesn't mean you're not going to still connect with great clients that are using Wix, right? And even if you don't then continue to use that skill set for the long term and you start connecting with other clients using WordPress and everything goes into WordPress for you as a service provider, that skill, that familiarity gives you extra confidence. It gives you context. It allows you to compare one thing to another. If your time is limited, by all means, put your focus on WordPress. That would be my recommendation for the reason I was just sharing before. But there's nothing to stop you from learning Wix as well and taking action on a great opportunity. Hey, this client is awesome. I'd love to work with them. They want to work with Wix. Perfect. I'll learn it. Right? There's no kind of right or wrong. It all contributes. If you perceive yourself as being in this career for the long haul, those kind of little kind of side journeys into other skill sets, they build confidence, they build relationships, they build connections, they allow you to take action on opportunities. You don't necessarily have to commit to that system for a long term. It's different to making the decision as a business owner. Now, a business owner, they can still change systems over the long term, but it's a little bit different the way they analyze it, because they kind of want to invest their time and money and design and, you know, website building focus and energy and money into the system that they kind of intend to be in for the long term. It's totally different for us as service providers. We can experiment and play, and it just builds our skill set and our ability to provide advice and kind of strategy help further along, because we can actually then start to help clients pick and choose tools because we've got that first-hand experience to speak from. Now, I'm not saying you have to learn them both. I personally wouldn't, but you can if you see those opportunities to take action on with those business owners that are seeing and hearing about Wix and they're already in Wix or they want to start out in Wix. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, the third thing I want to share with you, I've just got my notes over here. Be aware of the challenges with WordPress. So there are challenges with WordPress for the business owner to be aware of. A few of the big ones that come to mind are security, right? So when you start researching WordPress versus Wix, or you read blog posts, or you hear complaints about WordPress online, you'll hear people complaining about security with WordPress. Now, one thing to be aware of is that there's all sorts of ways to overcome that issue. One of the key things is the type of hosting that your client decides to go with for their WordPress site. So there's special managed hosting specifically for WordPress, tools like hosts like WP Engine, Flywheel. You don't need to go and learn what recommendations you need to provide to a client to make sure their site is secure. My perspective as a service provider is that if you're a supporter, you're not putting yourself forward as the person that's responsible for their website security or recommending which host they should get or which security plugin they should use. But it is good to have that context to know that security with WordPress is potentially an issue and is something that they need to be aware of, and there are plenty of things that can be done about it, and usually that's within the domain of a web developer or webmaster that's managing that client's site, maybe the client themselves if they're tech savvy enough, you if you have more experience and you move into kind of managing full sites. For me personally, my focus, I started out as a supporter. I went into building websites and got more tech savvy with that. I decided that with the way the scope of work plays out with website building, that I preferred not to do that and put more of my focus into developing my digital marketing skills and experience along the way. So I don't actually build and control full websites for clients anymore. I used to. My focus is predominantly on digital marketing, but I'm constantly collaborating with web developers, whether that's getting advice from my own developer that I collaborate with on an ongoing basis, or collaborating with a client's developer that they already have on team when I've come on board, all those types of things. And just having that general awareness really helps, even if it's for providing a referral or a recommendation. Oh, hey, I noticed that your website hasn't been updated in a while, and I see all the plugins are out of date. Can I pass you on to this developer? Or, actually not can I pass you on to this developer. What would be the right wording there? Did you want me to get in touch with that developer that you were using before, or can I help you research for another one? Things like that, right? You never quite know what the context is, whether a client already has a developer or webmaster on board. You can ask questions about that. But the short version of basically what I'm saying here is that even though brand new business owners will ask you, what do you think I should do for website security or what have you, experienced business owners won't. They know that supporting virtual assistants or online marketing implementers, the website security is not in their domain, right? But new business owners who aren't experienced yet with all the different freelancers do, they will potentially ask. And as a new VA, you might feel like you have to know. What I'm sharing with you here is that that ball's kind of not in your court, right? But it is helpful if you can help them to figure out where to access that support from a developer, a webmaster, etc. So security is one of the issues that comes up. Conflicting plugins. So like I mentioned to you before, if you're not familiar with WordPress or the terminology plugins, Think of plugins like apps, right? They're WordPress apps. They extend the functionality of WordPress. So what can happen, plugins are not all designed by the WordPress company. There is no WordPress company, right? WordPress is open source, so they're not all designed to work well and play nicely with each other. Sometimes there can be conflicts between two plugins. Plugins all have their own independent developers, just like, iPhone apps are all developed by different people. What happens with WordPress is that sometimes if one plugin is installed, it may change the functionality of another plugin or cause the site not to function in the way that you're expecting to. Once again, I see that as being in the wheelhouse of a developer or whoever is managing that site or whoever built that site, right? But what you should be aware of here is that if you don't have that skill set yet, then if the client asks you to install a plugin, just be aware that that can happen. Right, so it might mean taking actions like backing up the site before you install a plugin, or it might mean politely declining that request and just saying, look, you want to actually work with their developer on that. What's the right word? I'm no good at coming up with delegation sentences on the spot, but something to the effect of, should I reach out to name to check that we've got our site backed up and updated before we go ahead and install that plugin, just to make sure everything's working well. Now, don't type that down verbatim, but something to that effect. Just the general principle of part of your work is collaborating with the techie people to get this done. It's not doing it and taking responsibility for it yourself, unless you choose to have that be one of your specialties, the tech side of website maintenance. And then the other one is, the ongoing backups and updates. So once again, there's tools, there's systems to do that and make it more efficient, so it's not all manual. WP Engine hosting, for example, does automatic daily updates, backups. You've got the ability to do updates with various kind of maintenance services that work with your clients for WordPress, all these types of things. Or it's their developer doing it on a kind of set schedule. I won't start going into too much detail about how to manage these issues, security, conflicting plugins, ongoing backups and updates. Just be aware that they do exist, and most business owners are happy for the expense and the maintenance time required, and they factor that into their support services in their team. And a lot of the times as a supporter, you're not wanting to come on board, or you can, but it's you're not always coming on board where it's like just you doing everything, right? What you're wanting to do is be on well-established teams where you have the ability to stay in your lane, have that scope of work, and gradually build that experience and learn from the other team members, etc. Absolutely, a lot of the times when you're new as a VA, you are working solo with one business owner, where they're a new business owner on a limited budget, just starting to build their business out. But you can still bring in those other resources, those other freelancers to provide support on an ad hoc basis, even if it's jumping on Upwork and hiring someone to check something out. But there's so many options there. Okay, so I'll leave that at that one. Know that working with a developer is a very standard thing as a VA, right? The fourth and final thing that I wanted to share with you is to realize that you don't actually need to learn how to build websites in order to work online. And I know that that's a very common misconception, that, okay, I've got to learn WordPress or Wix or Squarespace or, whatever it is, whatever the system is. But you're not learning actually the totality of it. What you're learning as a supporter and a VA is how to manage and work with the content inside that website. So in WordPress, that's referred to as posts, in other words, blog posts, and there can be other types of posts as well, but posts or pages, static pages of content. So the tools to manage that content effectively and efficiently, and to have everything formatted properly, get the images in there, how they should be, optimize those images, have headings and tags and categories and SEO details. That's where your focus is at as a content marketing support or digital marketing support person, a VA. I'm using the terminology interchangeably here. If you decide to go into building websites, great, that's perfect. But that is not automatically lumped in with this digital marketing support work. So I really want to be clear about that. I didn't start building websites. How long was it? I'm trying to think, how long was it till I built a first website for a client? It's got to be over 2 years in, right? So for the first 2 years, I did lots and lots and lots and lots of content management inside WordPress, and a bit of Joomla, like I mentioned. But no website building, no theme customization, no editing menus, no installing WordPress, no accessing the hosts. Even if I was accessing the website host, it would be through coordinating with the developer. Oh, we need to find this out, or what have you, and they'd just tell me some details. But I wasn't doing any of this website building stuff for the first couple of years. Some people choose to. That's where one of their passions is, their creative strength. They build their own site and they want to actually do that. But it's not automatically lumped in there. So realizing that when you're very first starting out, figuring out where you're going to put your time and energy into getting skilled up, that's really important to know. It's completely optional whether you start moving into website building. And as I told you, my progression was I moved into website building because I was like, hey, I want to get the site looking good if I'm going to be marketing it. And then I transitioned out of it because of the way my preference was to move more into digital marketing strategy. But I had the experience through those years to then be able to refer to the most appropriate designer or developer in that particular scenario for what that business owner was looking for, whether it was e-commerce or whether, you know, they're doing launches and they need like a particular style of page, all that type of thing. So the steep learning curve that you hear about with WordPress, my kind of take on that is that it's applicable to be kind of wary of if you're building full sites. But it's not so relevant if you're managing the content like I've just shared, because WordPress is still very user-friendly for managing the posts and the pages, this content management. It's just when it comes to visually building out a homepage and the look of a site where something like Wix, where you've got this visual drag and drop builder, starts to look a lot more user-friendly and beginner-friendly than WordPress. But because we're not comparing it on that basis of building a site, the ease of use for building a site in Wix or WordPress, then I want to put more of my focus on making that decision based on popularity and demand for ongoing, well-paid support for business owners using that system. Hopefully I explained that clearly. Yeah, I think you get what I mean because I already said it at the beginning. Made that sentence a bit complicated. Now for your own website, it's a totally different story. So you don't have to build your own site in WordPress. In fact, that is where the steep learning curve consideration would really come into play. It's a totally different story between what I teach in the online biz skills course, learning to very kind of effectively manage a client's blog content in WordPress. It's a totally different story building your own WordPress site from scratch, right? So if you choose to do that, again, fantastic. But by all means, you could build your site in Wix, or the two tools that I actually recommend for that and teach inside, well, Card is the tool I teach inside the online biz skills, CARRD, a website builder for one-page profile websites. But the other one that I recommend and explain more about inside the course is called Strikingly, Card and Strikingly. And any of those tool options are effective for you to build your site, or you might choose Squarespace. Start to get a feel for designs that really grab your eye. When you see templates, oh, I'd love to use that template, or I'd love to use that styling. And that's exactly how I explain kind of choosing between Card and Strikingly in the online biz skills training. I say, look at the templates and designs and both see kind of what's jumping out at you, and but you do have that ability to use those really, really user-friendly visual builders to build out your own site. You're not needing to learn to build your own WordPress site to display your services as a brand new virtual assistant or freelancer. So there's some of the things to take into consideration. I really hope that helps with making your decision on where you're going to put your focus on getting skilled up. And just remember, it doesn't have to be one or the other, and there's no best. But WordPress, yes, is still the kind of most in demand for the type of businesses we're talking about here that need our ongoing support and need many supporters in many cases, in a lot of cases, not just one VA working with them. All right, hope that helps, guys. If anything was unclear or you have a question about that or you've got experience with that, you've been building Wix sites and loving it, definitely drop any comments below wherever you see this video published. All right, ciao for now, guys.